I suppose you're wondering what you're doing here.
It had crossed my mind.
There was to be no discernible plotline and no clear beginning or end to the story. Each week would focus on the hero's attempts to escape from the repressive regime of the village.
Do not yet realize there's no way out.
Number 6's refusal to accept his fate and the exploration of issues of personal freedom and mind control were the prisoner's driving force.
I am not a number. I am a free man.
I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed.
Hi, welcome to this video, which is all about crowd psychology in the markets. And what we're going to be doing is looking at a classic book on the subject. The book is called The Crowd, A Study of the Popular Mind, written by a Frenchman called Gustave Le Bon. He wrote it back in 1895. Now, yes, it is an old book, but it is considered the classic work on crowd psychology. You will find it on the required reading lists of many of the world's top traders. Ed Seykota, for example, Paul Tudor Jones. Now, in terms of my opening video clip, it was over that classic TV series, The Prisoner, that really explored crowd behaviour and the individual susceptibility of the crowd to be led. I started that clip with a quote from another Frenchman, a guy called Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains. Now, Rousseau wrote that back in the 18th century, when obviously societies were much more heavily controlled than they are today. Today, most people think that they have freedom of thought. Well, yes, you do have freedom of thought, but the crowd is very susceptible to manipulation. And when crowds form in the markets, they are manipulated by the media. And this comes in two ways. Firstly, in the way that most people are taught to learn Forex trading, what works in the markets. And secondly, in the reporting of financial movements in the markets, what the media says about them. And I'm going to cover that point in a lot more detail later on. And a couple of quotes from Le Bon there on the way in on the clip of The Prisoner basically show you he had a big interest in the susceptibility of the crowd to being controlled. As just a aside, The Crowd was actually a very popular book with Adolf Hitler and Mussolini. In terms of how easy a crowd is to control, they're very interested in, and it is true. A crowd is very easy to control. Doesn't have to be by an autocratic government, it can be by the media as well. Now, what I want to do in a moment is I'm going to explore three characteristics of the crowd, which Le Bon placed heavy emphasis on, which are the anonymity, I never say that word, of the individual in a crowd, the concept of contagion within a crowd, and also susceptibility of the crowd to being led. But what I want to do before I discuss the crowd in more detail and those three characteristics of the crowd, I want to just give you some quotes from Le Bon, which I think are fantastic quotes on crowds. And they only last for about 2 minutes. If you're a beginner, there is a lot you can learn from them. If you're an experienced trader, you'll appreciate them as well if you haven't seen them before. So a couple of minutes, I'm just going to show you some quotes from Le Bon. Then I'll be back to discuss them and also the characteristics of a crowd in the markets. So I'll be back in just a few moments. Hi, welcome back after those quotes from Gustave Le Bon, which I think perfectly sum up how a crowd acts and behaves in the Forex markets. Now, he isolated three main characteristics of any crowd. The first characteristic is anonymity. I've said it correctly this time. What he meant by that was that when anyone enters a crowd, they become anonymous and they give up thinking. They basically don't want to think anymore. They are part of the crowd. Now, in terms of Forex traders, this is undoubtedly true of the majority. The majority of traders do not want to think for themselves and have responsibility for their actions. So what do? They're going to follow tips or trades off the net. Look at the huge growth in social trading, for example. Or they'll continually buy trading systems which take the decision-making process away from them, and they inevitably lose money. You've got to be able to think for yourself in Forex trading, take responsibility for your actions to win. Now, from anonymity, we move on to contagion. Now, in terms of contagion, what Le Bon meant by this was any crowd, when some of the crowd start to do something, the rest of the crowd follow. It's contagious. We can see this in the markets when we get trends. Trends develop and then more people want to get in on them and make money from them. But the crowd, blinded by greed or fear, always pushes the move too far and then it reverses. Now, in terms of Forex traders, we can obviously make money from following the trends, but we can also make huge gains by spotting those big turning points as well. Now, many people think crowds are not manipulated, they just form. Greed and fear of the individuals come together. I would say in the Forex markets, the crowd is absolutely manipulated. Now I want to go on to susceptibility. And Le Bon said any crowd is susceptible to leadership. And it doesn't need to be complicated leadership, it just needs to fulfill the desire of the crowd. Now, you'll notice in one of those quotes from Le Bon, he said the crowd isn't interested in the truth. It has a desire, and nothing is going to come in the way of that desire. The crowd is going to go after it. They're after illusions, as he put it. Now, in terms of Forex trading, we do have the financial industry doing a lot of manipulation of the crowd. Brokers, for example, they will make Forex trading sound incredibly easy to do. You can download ebooks on how to become a professional trader. Just if you read that ebook, get started in 15 minutes. They make it sound really easy. Of course, it isn't that easy. But brokers put that out to the masses fall for it. And what the brokers do, of course, is they give traders a huge amount of leverage so they can satisfy their desire for huge profits. And of course, traders come in there, normally always over leveraged, and they soon lose money. Now, in terms of the Forex business itself, it's one of those peculiar businesses where there's a 50-50 chance in many traders' eyes of being right on a trade. And now, it's a peculiar thing, because I think that makes traders a little bit complacent. You do not have a 50-50 chance of being right on a trade at all, because of course you've got to place a stop. And volatility basically catches most traders out. They get over leveraged, they continually get hit by volatility. Now, in terms of the way the majority view financial institutions in trading, I think most Forex traders have a respect for financial institutions. So a lot of traders will seek out these reports from big banks or big trading houses like Goldman Sachs. And when you read their reports, they do sound incredibly logical. They're detailed. They've obviously had a lot of effort put into them, and they contain a lot of facts. And you'll find that they are normally frighteningly wrong in their predictions. Why? None of those analysts have probably ever read the crowd. The facts are unimportant. Logic doesn't have any place in the markets. You'll notice one quote from Le Bon says, "The crowd will always make the probable improbable." That will always be so. Never take these reports from big institutions or analysts and trust them, because they do sound logical. That is the problem, okay? You know, in terms of Forex markets, they are driven by sentiment. They always will be. The improbable can always happen. If you look across the news sites as well, they're fantastic at explaining what happened, okay? And yeah, a lot of traders, yes, again, see it as all very logical. And yeah, of course, the newswires make predictions that go wrong, then they just justify it by saying things changed. You get a lot of institutions or people writing in the media as well who are also biased, okay? So you have a lot of bias in the news. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, an institution will talk its own book. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, let's say, for example, at the moment, or over the last couple of years, there's been a huge amount of money made in Chinese investments. So you'll see all the big investment houses say that China is going to do well this year, it's going to continue with its growth and so forth. It's pretty obvious that that isn't going to happen if you really examine the facts, but they're making money out of it. So why wouldn't they slant the story in favour of what they want to achieve? There's plenty of institutions that write in the media that basically talk investments that they've got. Now, one of the things that I hate about the media is a particular quote, and you are going to see it so often. When a move, let's say you get a big move after a big trend in the opposite direction, you'll normally hear this quote. You'll see it probably once a week, on most of the news wires, okay? And it's this: traders booked profits. They never say traders booked losses. When they can't explain a move, it's always traders book profits. Now, that obviously can't be true, can it? Because 90% of traders lose. I think, the crowd does have a desire in the Forex markets, or the majority doesn't want to see the truth, okay? It sees illusions. What we must do is we must be totally on our own. We must question anything we read in the media. We must always be aware of the crowd's psychology in the way that it can make the probable, improbable, and look for basically those big turning points that can make us so much money when prices have been pushed too far too quickly. Okay, that is the video for today. What I'm going to do is give you a quote on the way out. I think it's a quote we all need to keep in mind as Forex traders. And I'm going to do it over some footage from the fantastic series The Prisoner. All about the individual, I think, in terms of trading the markets, being ourselves, thinking for ourselves, is obviously the way to make money. And because the crowd never changes, that means the opportunity for us to make money is always there. So thank you for watching me as per usual. Take care. Have a good day.
The Prisoner has influenced a whole genre of risk-taking surreal programming. For example, Twin Peaks, The X-Files, and The Outer Limits. Enigmatic #1 never appears in the program, but for fans and new viewers alike, this dubious position is securely held by Patrick McGowan. Immerse yourself in #6's world of psychological confusion, paranoia, and psychedelia.